Welcome. I had my eyes closed for the chant, and I opened it up, and the size of our room here doubled in terms of like, oh, you all came in. So thank you for coming. So I'm going to spend the first 25, 30 minutes actually sharing some lecture material before we go into movement, and we'll have a good full hour to do some movement together, maybe 45 minutes of movement, and then some time for integration and questions, lingering thoughts. And yes, there are pillows in the back, and also if you want to grab a few pillows and come up close for the lecture component, you're welcome to do that, and then we'll go on to our mats for the movement component. So, however, and chairs as well. So lots of options to be comfortable for the lecture portion, or to come closer for the lecture portion. And partially, I want to do a little lecture first just to give us a little bit more time to digest our food before we go into a little bit of movement together. Because it's, the structure of our meal times, and I really understand now the structure of the schedule here of when yoga happens in relationship to those meal times, because I can still feel my own full belly at this moment. So, one thing I will share with you, especially with our kind of place-holding slide that's up here for our title, is that the majority of the photographs that I share with you except for the kind of anatomy photographs, but the majority of photographs that I share with you in the slides are my own, and I have a deep love of photography in addition to being a yoga teacher and a therapist focused on trauma recovery. And last year, I created a post-traumatic growth deck that is an integration of the photos and quotes from the post-traumatic growth guidebook. And that deck is on Amazon or on my website, especially for international orders. You can get it through my website. But I just wanted to let you know that was out there. And I also want to share a little bit about this particular photo because it came from an unexpected place, and it's one of my favorite photos that's in the deck. And this particular image came on a day that was one of those more challenging days. I don't even know if I can recall exactly what it was that particular day, whether it was something of my own history or something that was stirred up from collective events, perhaps a combination of both. And and I have a commitment, in addition to my meditation and my yoga practice, to take a nature walk every day, particularly often at sunset. And so on this day, I was walking, and they were also doing some construction along the path of my daily walk. So that was also another little irritant in the mix of things. And there was a pile of rubble with some weeds that were growing in it along the side of the path that I was taking. And as I turned around to look at the sunset, I had the hunch to lean down and look through the weeds, and this was the photo that I took. And I use that story as a bit of an example to remember to look for beauty, and that sometimes we find that beauty in the unexpected places, and that it can be easy to forget, to pause and look, and when we do find it, how important it is to savor the beauty that we find, to really allow ourselves to register it. For me, it's one of the reasons why, and I remember that you were speaking, Baxter Bell, about your wife also integrating photography into yoga. It's one of the reasons that I love photography, is that there is a pause and a framing of a moment, and then there's the ability to go back and revisit that moment, and sometimes we even take the time to refine a photo. I come from a lineage of photographers. My father's a photographer. My grandfather was a photographer. He's no longer here. And I have childhood memories of spending time with him in the darkroom as he was at that time working with the negatives of the photo. He shot primarily in black and white. and refining them. And he shared with me that the editing phase is half of a good photograph, right? And I love that. And I think, if we can think of ourselves perhaps like a photograph that we are refining and we're editing, and we might recognize that we need to sometimes embellish and enhance that which is nourishing for us, that which is beautiful. So we can take the time to do that for ourselves as well. So in terms of the content that we'll have for today, we're going to combine a little bit of conscious breathing lecture and mindful movement lecture, and especially for both of those in the context of nervous system flexibility, which we've been speaking about as a kind of foundation for resilience and support for post-traumatic growth. And for those of you that may have missed some of those previous lectures, just a quick recap on that is that if we are stuck in nervous system states of fight, flight, sympathetic, on-guard vigilance, our story follows state. Our minds are going to attach narratives to that nervous system or physiological state. If we are stuck in states of collapse, fatigue, depression, sadness, hard to get out of bed, fatigue, our nervous system is going to inform the mind about what's possible for ourselves, for the world. And this is not to blame your nervous system or your body for any of those states. It's about having compassion and also recognizing that as we bring in practices that cultivate more nervous system flexibility, the ability to move between restful states and states of alertness with greater ease, where we're not stuck in rest that turns into collapse, or empowerment and awakeness that turns into vigilance, right? And that we have this ability to reclaim that nervous system flexibility, the ability to move between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic with relative ease. One of the fastest and most efficient ways to create positive change within the nervous system is through the breath. And as we have been exploring with the vagal toning practices that many of us did together yesterday, that we can also work with the vagus nerve and really kind of access the healing power of the vagus nerve by naturally stimulating where the vagus nerve comes close to the surface of the face. I wanted to share with you today one additional vagus nerve stimulation practice, which is going to be in relationship to eye movements and how eye movements have a direct connection to the brainstem. And I think I'll take us into that practice when we get into our movement practice, but I will teach you about that. So we'll have a little bit more on that vagus nerve stimulation. We'll have some breath and movement today. Before we launch into any lecture or practices, I once again, not surprising at this point, have a poem. And this poem is called The Forest, and you'll have a sense as to why I've chosen it. It's by Nikita Gill, and if you do not know Nikita Gill, now you do, and I highly recommend getting to know Nikita Gill's poetry. Nikita Gill herself is a trauma survivor and an extraordinary poet and writer about the journey of trauma recovery. So, one day, when you wake up, you will find that you've become a forest. You've grown roots and found strength in them that no one thought you had. You have become stronger and more beautiful, full of life-giving qualities. You have learned to take all the negativity around you and turn it into oxygen for easy breathing. You've learned to take all of the negativity around you and transform it, right? To turn it into oxygen for easy breathing. A host of wild creatures live inside you, and you call them memories. You call them stories. Those ones are stories. A variety of beautiful birds nest inside your mind, and you call them memories. A host of wild creatures live inside of you, and you call them stories. A variety of beautiful birds nest inside your mind, and you call them memories. You have become an incredible self-sustaining thing of epic proportions. And you should be so proud of yourself, of how far you have come from the seeds of who you used to be. Perhaps you have a sense of this for yourself, and perhaps you too are still growing from that seedling into that tree and into that forest of self. And wherever you are along this continuum of the journey of trauma recovery, you are completely welcome here, and that may these seeds that I'm planting throughout these 5 programs that I'm bringing to you in these days help you remember what it is that you're moving toward, help guide what it is that you're moving towards, and recognize that potential or that possibility of what it is that we're growing toward. All right, we're going to go from the flowery language of poetry into a little bit of the science. So shifting gears. And some of you weren't here for our very first lecture, but I'll name that the intersection of my work is, which I call Embodied Spirituality, intersects the science, the soulfulness of the yoga practice, the science of polyvagal theory and the vagus nerve, and the soma, the body, the background that I have as a somatic therapist as well. So we'll feel a little bit of that veering in towards the land of science for a bit. So eye movements and your vagus nerve. And I mentioned Stanley Rosenberg's book probably several times now, and you have his reference here at the bottom of the slide. Stanley Rosenberg wrote the book, Accessing the Healing Power of the Vagus Nerve. And he introduced several practices in there. We'll do one of them today that integrate eye movements that help to support the release of the muscles at the occiput and help to increase greater alignment of the atlas and axis vertebrae at the top of the spine and that sit at the base of the skull. And the alignment of C1 and C2 are connected to the health of your autonomic nervous system. And these eye movements have a direct connection to the suboccipital muscles that sit at the base of your skull. And you might even play with this for a moment. Sometimes it's really interesting to place your fingertips kind of lightly in the space, in that kind of soft spot that sits right at the center of the occiput. And don't drop the mic thing. I'll turn around for a second. So you can place your fingertips right here, and you can also kind of just rest your fingers along the base of your skull, and then move your eyes back and forth. And sometimes you might even sense the tiniest little movement or the tiniest little activation at the base of your skull. So it's subtle, but sometimes it's perceptible. And so as we engage in eye movements, we are very gently inviting a little bit of release. And I've been an EMDR therapist for, 23 years. I trained 24 years. I trained in 2001 and 2002. And in EMDR therapy, we use these lateral or bilateral eye movements for a variety of reasons, and we'll talk about some of this a little bit later in this lecture, but basically to help integrate across left and right hemispheres of the brain. It helps to mimic REM sleep in the way that our brains are naturally processing through the memories that we experience, and especially traumatic memories. And also, I love some of the science around how eye movements stimulate what we call the neurochemistry of courage, but this stimulate a little bit of the release of dopamine. And that helps us to turn toward something that's challenging with a felt sense of courage inside of us, with a felt sense of empowerment that I can handle this now. And on top of it, when we pair eye movements with a little bit of movement, we are actually mobilizing the body with a little bit of that sympathetic activation. Sympathetic is not all bad. The sympathetic nervous system gets a kind of bad rap because it gets associated with our fight-flight response and high cortisol and high stress. But we need our sympathetic nervous system. It's part of nervous system balance. We just don't want to be stuck in it. But our sympathetic nervous system also helps us find courage and a sense of empowerment and aliveness and excitement, even joy. And so we want to be able to access that with a little bit of the eye movements, and we tap into something that we also call kind of exercise-induced neuroplasticity, where we're really keying into the neurochemistry that supports us to lay down new positive pathways. So as we are moving, and we're going to combine this with a neck stretch today to also amplify a little bit of the release of some of the tight muscles that can pull or even lead to what we call subluxation or loss of alignment of those upper vertebrae that can then reduce that blood flow to the vagus nerve and the brainstem. So we will do that today. And this is the exercise that comes from Stanley Rosenberg's book. It's called Half Salamander. He has another one called the Basic Exercise. Some of you may have done that before or done that with me before. But this is the one that we're going to do today. And I will guide you through it once we get there. But I also gave you the instructions for it in case it's something that you want to take on and do on your own at home. It is another one of those that, as I was sharing yesterday, some of my daily practices, this goes into my daily practices category. When we come into conscious breathing, we are going to really work with this positive feedback loop that we're really aiming to build within body and mind, which is that when we focus on conscious breathing, our mind begins to calm down, especially when we slow down the breath and we have rhythmic breathing. So with that focused calm mind, we are able to really focus on the breath, which then also helps create this focused, calm body. So calm body, focused mind, rhythmic breathing become this loop that is self-reinforcing of that positive state. Oh, I have a clicker. I don't have to lean. Look at that. I'm also going to move this down so I'm not turning my neck to the side, so I'm not cranking my neck while I talk to you. Huh? Whoops, what did I do? Oh, yeah, we don't want that. Thank you. How's that? Okay, great. So lots of words on this screen, but I will describe it to you. So what one of the things that we're cultivating when we breathe rhythmically is higher vagal tone or healthy vagal tone or stronger, more coherent heart rate variability. And our healthy vagal tone involves a rhythmic increase in the number of heartbeats or our heart rate in relationship to the inhalation. And as we exhale, we will have a reduction or a decrease in the number of heartbeats or in our heart rate that corresponds with the way that our breath stimulates the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So every inhalation, we're going to get a little bit more sympathetic engagement, and every exhalation, we get a little bit more of a parasympathetic response. And because of that, and I mentioned yesterday this concept that I said we'd come back to. I can't remember who asked the question about the vagus nerve and the vagal brake. That was you. Thank you. So I spoke yesterday about how the vagus nerve functions like a metaphorical brake pedal on the gas pedal of the sympathetic nervous system, and where that occurs is in the sinoatrial node of the heart. And so we have innervation into that sinoatrial node of the sympathetic fibers of the nervous system as well as the parasympathetic fibers. That's what allows our heart rate to increase when we are needing to protect ourselves, and it allows our heart rate to decrease when we're safe. The decreasing of that heart rate into context of safety is the applying of this metaphorical vagal brake. But we have two vagal brakes. We have a vagal brake that is refined, that is the ventral vagal circuit. So that upper vagal circuit that we spent all day yesterday, or an hour and a half yesterday, doing all of those practices, awakening and supporting, is the soft, refined brake. So when we think of a soft brake pedal, if you imagine that you're driving your car and you notice that the cars ahead of you have hit the brakes and the light's turning yellow, and you tap your brakes and you begin to slowly slow down, and then you come to a nice soft stop, and then the light turns green. You don't even have to press on the gas pedal yet to speed up. You just simply lift your foot off the brake. And that lifting the foot off the brake is going to allow for a smooth start, and then eventually you can add a little bit more gas as needed. That when we're driving our vehicle like that, it feels like a smooth ride, yeah? Conversely, if we are experiencing perhaps a lot of racing experiences, your foot is just, kind of pressing that pedal to the metal, right? You're on the gas pedal, you're go, go, go. And then we might come sometimes to sudden stops. That's the other vagal brake. The other vagal brake is it's an evolutionarily older defense response that protects us, that's a last-ditch attempt to stay alive, to survive, and it's a hard, fast brake. We call it the dorsal brake, but remember, dorsal is just an anatomical term. It refers to the dorsal vagus that goes below the diaphragm. But what occurs with the evolutionarily older vagal brake is that it can take us into vasovagal syncope or a fainting response. Vasovagal syncope is essentially a fainting response. It can take us into a hard, fast sense of collapse or shutdown. And then sometimes we can get stuck in states of shutdown for extended periods of time. So when I work with individuals with complex PTSD or dissociation or a long history of trauma, what can sometimes happen is that it's kind of over time led to that greater sense, that loss of autonomic flexibility and that greater sense of being stuck in states of collapse or fatigue, or what we'll call low exercise tolerance or low sympathetic nervous system tolerance, where if I go out and mobilize into the world, if I do go for a walk, or if I do get some exercise, quote unquote, I pay for it for an extended period of time. You mentioned chronic fatigue as part of your journey. And so that low exercise tolerance can lead to this feeling of, I don't have any spoons left, is often the metaphor, that there's nothing left for me to give, and I have to take 3-5 days to recover from what we feel like shouldn't have been that much of an exerted effort. So those are ways in which that kind of vagal brake gets kind of stuck. So another phrase that we use in addition to vagal tone is something that we call vagal efficiency. And vagal efficiency is the ability to basically apply and remove the vagal brake with relative ease. How do we build vagal efficiency? So that I can go into states of joy, alertness, excitement, and I can come back into states of rest and ease and quiet, and I don't get stuck in either of that sympathetic or parasympathetic. One of the ways that we build vagal efficiency is through conscious breathing, because we are essentially practicing with every inhale and every exhale that smooth ride, that smooth application and removal of the vagal brake. And the blue image on this slide here, this very smooth kind of wave-like image, is what we would call a more coherent heart rate variability pattern, or an optimal heart rate variability pattern, where we start to get our own rhythm. And if you look at the science of HRV, or heart rate variability, the science says that we all have our own kind of like our own innate rhythm. It generally varies between with the breathing pattern, it generally varies between a 4-second inhale and 4-second exhale to a 6-second inhale and a 6-second exhale. And that when we practice rhythmic breathing, or samavriti, as we refer to this in the yogic system, in the science, it's often called resonance frequency breathing or coherence breathing. When we breathe rhythmically, we are basically building in this optimal rhythm. And sometimes we can kind of feel that. Our body is its own built-in kind of biofeedback system where we can feel when we've gotten into the zone of our own vibration, our own optimal breathing pattern. But there's also devices that we can use that give us some feedback, wearable devices, and they're not always 100% accurate, but they're often good enough. And you can look at a lot of the science of heart math and Roland McCready and others in this field that are studying heart rate variability to get to know more about the science of this. So heart rate variability, this is a quote from Bessel van der Kolk, he says, provides the best available means of measuring the interaction of sympathetic and parasympathetic tone, that is, of brainstem regulatory integrity. And it forms the physiological basis for resilience. And that's a quote from Steve Porges. Optimal heart rate variability is, again, this marker for resiliency. It's a greater variability between the number of heartbeats that we have on our inhalation pattern as compared to the heartbeats that we have on our exhalation pattern. And when we're in that optimal HRV for our own physiology, we're better able to make decisions. We can handle conflicts. We can navigate difficult moments. We can slow things down. We can go into responding versus reacting. But also physiologically, our immune system functions really well, and and emotionally, we experience reductions in anxiety, depression, and PTSD symptoms. So it kind of helps with the whole range of symptoms that we might have. A little bit more on the physiology here is that when we're breathing diaphragmatically, and we did some of this together on our first practice together on Monday, when we're breathing diaphragmatically, here you can actually see this beautiful image of the way that the diaphragm wraps itself around and becomes the connective tissue that we call the pericardium. So it's one united unit of connective tissue. So literally when we breathe and we inhale and we stretch the diaphragm and we open the rib cage, we are creating more space around the heart. The heart volume increases, it expands into that space, and this is the inhale pattern. And something interesting happens when we have that broader volume for the heart. The flow of the blood through the heart begins to slow down. So we have an initial slowing down of your heartbeat on the inhalation pattern. However, our body is seeking homeostasis. So we have the secondary response in which vagus nerve, sitting at the sinoatrial node of your heart, communicates up to your brainstem saying, hey, the heart's slowing down. Brainstem communicates back down to the heart via the vagus nerve, speed it back up. So in a secondary form, the inhalation actually enhances the increase of our heart rate. On the exhale pattern, the diaphragm lifts up. There's less space around the heart. The blood flow moves through quickly. Imagine a wide river moving into a narrow canyon. You're going to see more rapids. It's going to move faster, right? So that faster movement of your heartbeat gets communicated up to the brainstem, down through the vagus nerve, back to the heart, saying slow it back down. So paradoxically, the exhale pattern sends the signal to slow things down. That's why most of us in this arena have probably heard at some time or another taking a long, slow exhale, or even chanting Om for a long period of time is going to stimulate a parasympathetic response, because we are emphasizing in that rhythmic balance of inhale and exhale. When we emphasize exhale breathing, we'll emphasize more parasympathetic. Another kind of anatomical connection here is the diaphragm-psoas connection. The diaphragm is integrated into the connective tissue of the psoas. The psoas muscles, we have one on each side, deep low in the belly, that connect to the inside of the top of the femur and through the pelvis and then up into the diaphragm. I've heard it said that psoas, once again, can be thought of as primarily connective tissue rather than muscle. Now, of course, all of our muscles have varying degrees of connective tissue that wrap around it. But one of the reasons why I keep referencing connective tissue, and we'll come to this in a moment, is that the vagus nerve is very, very integrated into our connective tissue. So when we are breathing in a way that creates calm body, breathing rhythmically or emphasizing the exhalation of the breath, we are sending signals to our bodies that it's safe enough now to come out of defensive self-protection. And that calm body, focused mind, rhythmic breathing cycle continues. This picture is in, I have a flip book out there that's for therapists who want to integrate mind-body tools into our work with clients, and it's called the Therapeutic Yoga for Trauma flip book. And so this image comes from that book. Now we're looking at the back of the body, so we're not seeing the upper vagus that goes with other cranial nerves into the face, but we're seeing where the vagus nerve descends down from the brainstem, along the two sides of the neck, into the heart, lungs, and then if you look closely at this picture, and you're welcome to come closer to see it, but you can see the way that the vagus nerve wraps itself around the esophagus and then travels through what we call the esophageal hiatus. The esophageal hiatus is where the esophagus goes through the diaphragm to connect to the stomach and the digestive organs. So when we are breathing diaphragmatically, we're massaging the vagus nerve. We're actually, kind of creating this vagal tone or natural vagus nerve stimulation, this time from the inside out. So yesterday we were massaging the upper vagus where it comes close to the surface of our skin. And through our breath, we're massaging into the lower vagus. And that's going to ultimately be beneficial for rest and digest, healthy sleep, relaxation response, and so forth. Once again, there's some information on the slide about the movement of the vagus nerve in relationship to the space around the heart. And one thing that I haven't named in this is that not only is the vagus nerve picking up on changes in the heartbeat, the frequency of the heartbeat, but it's also picking up on changes in blood pressure, and then again is going to work with your brainstem to help regulate your blood pressure. So looking more broadly at the body, and I've been in the field of somatic psychology since the mid-1990s. I did my master's degree in somatic psychology at Naropa University, and I've studied somatics now for, again, about 30 years. And there are many common factors across many different domains of somatic work. I can't remember if the person's in this room. One of you told me that you're trained in Hana somatics. That's you. Beautiful, right? And so there's many different, some of the somatic modalities are more psychotherapeutic modalities, and some of them are more body-based movement modalities. And they all have some very common intersections, one of which is that the recognition that our difficult, stressful, or traumatic life experiences, especially those from early development, contribute to patterns of tension that we carry in our bodies. And that when we work with body awareness and conscious breathing and movement, we are tapping into an internal source of wisdom that helps to guide our healing process. So generally what we think of is that therapeutically, whether it's a therapeutic space held in a yoga class, whether that is one-on-one therapeutic spaces, we are offering the container of our attention and our awareness, and we're guiding the individual or guiding our students to become more aware of that felt sense of the body, to tap into the intrinsic wisdom that lives inside of each one of us. So we are not healing another person, we are helping each other access our own intrinsic healing wisdom. And we are engaging in body awareness and healing movements at a pace that can be tolerated, because especially if we've lived with a lot of trauma, turning towards the body can sometimes feel scary. So we might work slowly, or when working with groups, we are always emphasizing choice, right? Choice creates safety from the perspective of the nervous system. This is going to go way back to some of the early somatic pioneers. Wilhelm Reich, who was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud's, and then Stanley Kellerman has the image of the belts. Wilhelm Reich as the Reichian bands, this image of the bands of tension. And basically, again, in some of these early somatic work, there was a recognition that developmental trauma or stressors lead us to carry holding patterns in certain common places of tension in the body. The pelvis, the abdomen, the diaphragm, the chest, the throat, the jaw, around the ocular zone, and in our cranium. And so the ocular zone being around our eyes. And so many of us might notice our own vulnerable areas to where we gather tension. You mentioned your jaw. Someone else mentioned migraine headaches, right? We have our hot spots based on our history, based on our own vulnerabilities. It's good to know yourself. It's good to know, these are my vulnerable spots, right? And to know how to take care of them. And once again, movement, conscious breathing, self-awareness, interoceptive awareness, or body awareness helps to release these blocks. Probably everyone in this room is already looking at this picture going, but those are the chakras. That's the same spots, right? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Back around to this topic of fascia. The fascia is so deeply intertwined, or connective tissue, I'll use those terms interchangeably here, so deeply intertwined with our nervous system, especially in communicating from body to the brain what's happening in the body. And the vagus nerve is going to pick up on all of the subtle changes that are happening in the fascia that include physical changes, but also include chemical changes. The neurochemistry gets communicated via your fascia. So fascia plays a key role in hormone transmission and neurotransmitter transmission. And the vagus nerve, so deeply intertwined, is going to pick up on changes of, for our ladies in the room, in estrogen, right? And for picking up in changes for any of us in serotonin, picking up in changes in dopamine, GABA, acetylcholine, right? I could, oxytocin, insulin, thyroid hormones. So this becomes this incredible, foundation for the integration of all of the bodily systems in throughout our entire being. And I look forward to Baxter Bell's talk tonight on how yoga is beneficial for healthy aging and longevity and so forth. And I'm no doubt this is so deeply connected to your topic as well. So I'm glad we cross over just a bit here. I'm watching him take copious notes. It's beautiful. It's great. I mean, right? We all learn from each other. It's stunning. Yeah. Thank you. And as we are sensing, and as many of us know, like when you're on your yoga mat and you even do the slightest little change, right? Maybe you just reach a little bit through your heel or your toe, or you change the angle of your head, it changes something in a completely different part of your body, because the fascia connective tissue connects all of us, right? So we might have a release in our sacrum or in our hip, and we feel it in our head. We're like, wow, I didn't even know that was possible, but there we are. Gil Hedley is a really fascinating contributor in the world of fascia and connective tissue. I've attended many programs with him, but last year I had the opportunity to attend what he calls his vagus nerve tour. He has a nerve tour that he's been taking around the world, and it came as a result of he's an anatomy specialist who does a lot of work with cadaver and cadaver research, and the most respectful relationship to the bodies that have been donated for his research. He knows their stories, he knows their families, he says prayers, he has an altar devoted to each person's life before he goes into working with their body and studying the anatomy. And but one of the things that he studied on his nerve tour was he was looking for the vagus nerve. And rather than finding a singular nerve pathway, what he found was an entire webbing that integrated itself into the fascia of the abdomen and into the heart, into the lungs, and into the diaphragm. And it was remarkable even to him, who's been studying anatomy forever. He was just like, at some point, they just became the same fabric. It became the same tissue, the vagus nerve and the connective tissue. So fascinating. And he has a speech that you can listen to on YouTube. It's called the Fuzz Speech. And basically what he says is that every night, some of you have watched it, I'm seeing those of you that know the speech because you're smiling. The Fuzz Speech is basically the short version of it, and I recommend finding it and watching it, is that every night when we sleep, our fascia gets a little bit sticky, it hardens a little bit, and that we have to essentially wake up each morning and we have to liquefy our fascia. We have to come back into movement and conscious breathing and awareness practices to come back into our mobile body. But in addition to just the normal patterns of stillness through sleeping at night, we also can sometimes harden this fascia through stress, through trauma, through injuries, through experiences of ongoing turmoil in our lives. And that the more of that stickiness that we have, it contributes to fatigue and pain and inflammation and immune system imbalances. So how do we nourish fascia? Hydration break. So good. Hydration. Interoceptive awareness, simply being aware of your body. And interoception is a great body of study. I mean, this is like a 30-hour program that I'm going to give to you, and I'm going to close it up in a minute because I want to get us into movement. But it's a very long program that I offer, and I love teaching about this material so much. But interoception in itself is about body awareness, and it's about but not only does interoception help you feel where you're tense or where you're still full from a meal or where you're thirsty or whatever else you might be feeling inside, but it also gives you feedback about your emotions. And when you are feeling your emotions and congruent with the felt sense inside, the body actually thrives. That there is a way in which when we're feeling what is true for us, the neurochemistry of the release of hormones and the release of feel-good chemicals in the body is supported, and then that goes into the fascia, and that goes into the vagus nerve, and it goes into the brain, and it's so good. Okay. Proprioceptive awareness, we're going to do that together. As I mentioned, feeling our emotions, all of the movements that we get to play with, massage, craniosacral, all of the beautiful touch-based therapies, some of the work that we did yesterday, the neck drag, then when all of you went, oh my gosh, I didn't know how much tension there was there. Fascia release. Pranayama, fascia release. Joint rotations, which we're going to do, fascia release. The joints have, at the cavities of some of our major joints, we have a synovial fluid that lubricates the spaces there, and when we are moving through these joints, we are stimulating and bringing oxygen to the hyaline cartilage, which is connective tissue. So we are loosening up through the joints of the body. In the yogic practices, we call these the wind relieving poses or the Pavan Muktasana series. And we'll do a little bit of that on our movement journey today as well. Pendiculation, yay! The way that I teach yoga, and you're going to get a feeling for this in just a little moment, is that any posture is not to be perfected. We're not trying to work anatomically today. We are going to work with, God bless you, we're going to work with any posture as the secure base for exploratory movement. So for example, if we go into a tabletop or a cat-cow, I'm just going to invite you to move like your favorite animal just waking up from a nap. And you will hear that in a moment. These movements are deeply healing for the mind-body system. You can think of it like a full-body yawn. Oh yeah, that one's not mine. But I should change it. I have a fabulous leopard photo in my card deck that I took in South Africa. I'm going to change it now. I'm going to take my leopard pandicular movement and make it mine. This was before I had a good pandicular photo. Thank you. I didn't take this photo either. But we get the feeling for it. And this is just a little bit of information about the exercise-induced neuroplasticity and the way that when we go into conscious mobilization, as we're going to do here, we have a window of positive neuroplasticity that we stimulate when we engage more elevated heart rate and when we engage in movement. And then mindful movement is going to direct the growth of that neuroplasticity in a wanted direction. Another piece here is just about bilateral stimulation and brain integration and the way that rhythmic movements are going to support some of that coherent nervous system state. And that, again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I'd rather move with you. How's that sound? So you might take a picture of the slide if you want. It's okay with me. These are all quotes from books that I have, so they're all out there as well. And that what we're facilitating when we're engaging in any kind of brain integration practice, whether that's eye movements or bilateral movements, is what we call coherence. Coherence, we've been talking about a lot through all of these programs, is about the ability in this case to put our feelings into words, to connect our traumatic memories with our positive resources, to access somatic experiences that guide healing movement so we can sense and feel the body with conscious awareness, and then we can make motoric choices that serve our bodies. And it helps us reflect on our life, manage our impulses, and develop greater self-control and attentional freedom. I love that particular one. Our attention doesn't get stuck. Our intention doesn't get stuck. I'm going to guide you through a little practice here that integrates what we call the HEAL protocol. The HEAL protocol is developed by a man named Rick Hanson. Rick Hanson wrote a book called Hardwiring Happiness. It's another beautiful integration of mindfulness into well-being. And the HEAL protocol basically says that not only do we want to have a positive experience, we want to enrich it, absorb it, but ultimately we want to link those positive experiences to our areas of challenge, our areas of suffering, and that's what's going to create positive neuroplastic change. I'm watching Anya's jaw just go like, oh, that made the connection for me. That was a moment. That was an aha. I loved it. It was a total aha. I felt it from here. Like, right. And in the practice that we'll do, I love to bring in this quote from Jungian wisdom holder. She's no longer alive on the planet, but Marie-Louise von France. She says, if we can stay with the tension of opposites long enough, sustain it, be true to it, we can sometimes become the vessels within which the divine opposites come together and give birth to a new reality. This is about the most yogic statement that we could, right? Like that is what we are doing in our yoga practice. And it's what we're also cultivating with nervous system integration as well. All righty. The last little slide here before our practice. We did this yesterday, self-havening, yeah? And we're going to add a layer to it that is really fun. It's called the Creating Possibilities Protocol, and it adds another element where we're integrating not only the sensory input of the havening touch, but we're integrating that with mindset, with with intention, with sankalpa. So let's do it, shall we? Shall we grow together? Oh, thank you. Okay. Let's grow together. This one is my photo, though. It's good. Okay. So I'm going to leave this up here as a little bit of a guide for what we're going to do. We'll see how much of it we get in, and I don't know, we'll go for about 45 minutes. We might go a few minutes over the top of the 1:30, and I trust we'll be okay. Alrighty. So for anyone that would like to do this practice in a chair, totally welcome. Totally welcome. So you are, I will try and make this as chair accessible at the moments that I can. And these are not the most optimal chairs for some of the chair yoga that we might do. And so again, I trust that you will all take care of yourselves. All right. Our first practice, our first guided practice here, besides hydration, is going to be a version of that HEAL protocol. And I call it the two-handed pairing practice. And what I would love to invite you to do is to identify for yourself one moment of total nourishment, of something that has just like, It might be a walk you took along the beach or a swim. It might be a moment of meditation, a moment during your yoga practice. I'm going to invite you to find something that's relatively fresh, but if you need to go further back, go further back. But we have so much nourishment surrounding us. My personal nourishment that I'm going to choose is the orchid that's growing on that tree right there. If you haven't seen it, like, hang out with her for a little bit. She's really stunning. So it can be something really simple that lights you up inside. Maybe not that. Okay. Something that lights you up inside. Something that your body says yes to. And as we have a positive experience, let yourself enrich it. Really get to know the details that for you let you know that that feels like a yes. Let you know that that feels good. Take in that nourishment, and we'll go into the A. H, have a positive experience. E, enrich it. A, absorb it. So really notice how your body responds to that area of nourishment. And I'm going to invite you to choose one of your hands to represent that positive experience. Might be, doesn't matter which one. Choose one hand that's going to represent that. And just say thank you, right? Honor. And then you might let your hand representing that positive experience just rest quietly for a moment. And I'm going to invite you to take your other hand. And this hand is going to represent one area of challenge, one area of distress. Now, for today's purposes, maybe don't take your most intense, distressing trauma ever, right? We might not work with that in this shorter practice, but choose something, might be even just something as simple as my bag didn't make it on my travel. I mean, that's a distress, but it's also not the biggest trauma. Or I got a delay on my flight. Or I got stuck in traffic. Or It was hard to leave my kids behind and travel. I know it was good for me, but it was still hard. And so choose something. Something that has maybe enough juice in it. It might be something personal, and you might also choose to work with something more related to the world around us, right? It's hard in the world right now. You don't have to take all that world pain on, but just acknowledging. And as you bring your attention to that experience, that memory, that hand, notice how your body responds. Notice what emotions are present. And next invitation is to bring both hands where you can see them both. Where you can see them both. And acknowledging within your consciousness that both can be part of you, both can coexist in a sense. You might bring your attention back fully to the hand that represents the resource. Notice if it takes a little bit to get back there, if it is a little sticky for you. And take your time until that feels robust in your consciousness again. The color, the shape, the feeling, the sounds, whatever might be associated. And then bring your attention, turn your eyes to the hand representing that area of distress. Acknowledge, honor. Coming back to your area of resource. Appreciate. Let it nourish you. And you might even just let your eyes go back and forth, one hand to the other. A little bit of bilateral eye movement as you hold both together. Softening those eye movements if you're doing them. And next invitation is to explore what would you like to have happen next. Now, options might be, you might explore the relationship between your two hands. Maybe they want to come a little bit closer to each other. If you choose to do so, notice how that feels in your body. To, in a sense, bring both hands more to midline. You might even let the inner edges of your palms touch, creating a little bit of a bowl with your two hands, and allowing that container or that vessel to hold both simultaneously. That may or may not feel right for you. You might want to experiment with letting the hand of resource help hold the hand holding that represents the distress. In a sense, another mudra. You might experiment with bringing both hands to your heart. Maybe not. Maybe one of those felt right, or maybe you found a shape with your hands, a relationship between these two that's just right for you, your own expression. Whatever shape you're choosing, maybe hand over hand at your heart, maybe palm to palm, hand holding hand, vessel. Perhaps finding one word or short phrase that is representational for you of an intention that you would like for our practice. what it is that you are cultivating more of in yourself, what represents this bringing together of the suffering and the possibility or hope, change, growth. And from here, I'm going to invite you to come back into some havening touch. So for those of you that weren't here yesterday, havening touch is a palm-to-palm movement. It's slow, it's not particularly rapid, and it's a way of tapping into the healing power of touch. The fibers sensitive in the palms of the hand. And I'm going to offer up a phrase. This phrase says, what if I were? What if I were? And I'm going to invite you to add in your intention word. What if I were? The word I'm working with today is free. So I'll just use that as an example. What if I were free? Finding how that feels in your body. What if I were? And then, if you'd like, bringing your hands to your face and just smoothing out from center of forehead outward toward your temples. I can be. I can be. I can be free. I can be free. Add in your word. Say it for yourself. Out loud or quietly or in your mind. I can be. Next invitation, taking hands from the bridge of your nose outward toward your ears, and I'll move this for a moment. Sweeping touch, and the words here, I will be, I will be. I will be free. Adding your word in, I will be. Next movement, shoulders down to elbows. I am. I am. I am free. Your word, I am. I am. Lovely. And then pausing for a moment, letting your hands rest. Notice the feeling in your body. Allow yourself to absorb, receive, savor any positive shifts. Beautiful. Next invitation is to bring your hands to your ears. We'll go into the tragus stimulation. If you weren't here yesterday, the tragus is the bit of cartilage right in front of your ears. Taking thumbs behind, 4 fingers in front, and just a few breaths here with a gentle squeeze. Saying, hello. Hello, vagus nerve. Hello, mind-body superhighway of connection. Waking that up. You might also take your fingertips to the area around the ear canal, often referred to as the concha or kunkka, 100% vagal fibers right under the surface of your skin. And then you can also roll your earlobes out and in, all of those auricular acupressure points getting stimulated. by your very own vagus nerve devices, your fingertips. Beautiful. And then I'll invite you to take your hands back around to your body, one on belly, one on heart. Remember, you always have choice. If anything I'm offering doesn't feel right for you, adapt, modify. Next invitation is to begin to inhale so that you start to find your way into belly, diaphragm, rib cage, heart. And exhale, heart, rib cage, belly, drawing belly to spine. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And I'm going to let go of my count so you can find your own rhythmic breathing. And you might start to combine this with a little bit of spinal movement. So now not only is breath mirroring your nervous system, but your spine as well. Inhale, expanding, awakening the sympathetic system. And exhale, contracting into flexion of your spine, more parasympathetic. Adding in, if you'd like, some movement of your arms. I'm going to start with hands on shoulders in Robin's breath. Inhale, lift chest, even chin. And exhale, elbows come together in front of your heart, chin tucks. Inhale, expand. Exhale. And this is a great place as well to just let a little sound out. On the exhale, inhale, we open. Exhale, honor the contracted places. Give them a voice. One more like that. Maybe even a little lion's breath with this one. Next inhale, inviting you to open your wings. And exhale. Maybe hands press. Give them a good press here. Inhale, expand. Exhale, give them a press. One more like that. Slight change. We inhale. Exhale, right under left. Take it into a little self-hug. Inhale, expand. Left under right, a self-hug. Inhale. This time, maybe taking it into an eagle arms. Right under left, you might double wrap here in forearms. Staying here either in self-hug or eagle arms. Inhale, we lift the elbows. Exhale, we contract. Inhale, we lift. Exhale, contract. Inhale, expand through your arms. Exhale, cross the other arm on top. For me, it's right on top, left underneath, either self-hug or eagle arms. Inhale, lifting the elbows. Exhale, contract. Inhale, lift. Exhale, draw it in. This time as we open up the arms, an invitation just to roll out through your shoulders. One direction and the other. Moving through forearms around your elbows, joint rotations. And the other way. In Boulder, I sometimes call this rolling the joints, but it's not that kind. It's not that kind. This is the natural high. Go ahead and let your wrists go one direction. Thank you for laughing at my joke. Okay, and the other direction with your wrists. And then let that go for a moment. Yeah, shake it out. Beautiful, beautiful. Good. 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 We're going to keep going, but for a little moment, hydration. Especially here, hydration. A moment to notice. Okay, great. If you'd like to keep going, next invitation is to take this into a little bit of a side body. Now, for my friends in the chairs, you can just kind of find your way in that chair. Maybe you use the support of the chair, or you can do this standing, beautiful. And then we're going to stay with one side. So go ahead and just stay on one side for a moment. Just, whichever side you're choosing, if you're mirroring me or opposite, it doesn't really matter. We get to do both sides. So in the side body lean, make it yours. You might move that upper arm around if that's available for you. Another place where you might add a sound, a sigh. Really noticing how one side of the body is contracting, the opposite side is opening. And then lifting back up, we're going to take same ear to the side we were leaning towards, same ear towards shoulder. Now here's where we go into half salamander. So traditionally this is done just with hands resting in the lap. You might also choose to give your head a little kickstand and reach the opposite arm away. Either way is totally fine. Now we're going to add in eye movements. Eyes are going to go toward the leaned side. If your arm is lifted, it's like you're looking towards elbow or shoulder. So my right arm is lifted, my head's leaning to the right, my eyes are going to reach to the right sides of their sockets. And then just breathe. For anyone in here that's worked with Feldenkrais, this will also feel familiar. A lot of unwinding of the nervous system. Now we're going to keep everything the same except for the eyes. So keeping head, body the same, just the eyes are going to go towards the opposite corners. Reach, reach, reach through the eyes. And then very gently, eyes to center. You can help your head come to center. And pause for a moment to notice left and right sides of your neck. One might feel longer, more open, more like the empty flute of Krishna. Okay. All right, let's find side two. So we're going to start with the side body lean. Whatever is the opposite side of what you had just done a moment ago. Oh, let it feel good. Let it feel good. Going for yumminess. Yumminess. Nourishment. Go for where your body says yes. Maybe a sound. Feeling into the contraction of one side body, the opening of the other. You might even get a little movement of your arm, shoulder. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. One more like that. And then up through center. And now we're going to take ear towards that same side body lean. And maybe with a little kickstand, hand, maybe the opposite arm reaches. And now it's the eyes going towards the lean side. Eyes maybe towards elbow, shoulder. If arm is lifted, it's not necessary. And again, it's a nice stretch of the eyes. So you can think of how we might stretch our side bodies, side of the neck. We're also stretching the eyes. It shouldn't hurt, right? Just going for a good stretch, yummy stretch. Let your breath be natural. Notice if there's a tendency to hold your breath. And then keeping everything the same, eyes are going to go to the opposite corners. It's like you're going to look at the corner of where the roof here meets the side of the platform, side of the supports. And we stretch, stretch, stretch through the eyes. And then eyes come to center, assist your head to come to center, and then a moment to sense inward, sense and feel. Sometimes we sense a opening, and sometimes we might go, oh wow, there's a lot of tension in that side of my neck. Ooh, honey. Both are welcome, right? We're increasing awareness. We're building greater self-awareness along the way. So we've been sitting for a long time. We're going to move our legs. We're not standing yet, but we are going to move our legs. Okay. So the first invitation is to take your right leg and to lean back enough to lift. And again, this is really lovely for the chair, very easy to do. You're just going to start to roll right foot around right ankle in one direction. I'm going to go right side. I think all of you went with me for right side because it's going to be helpful for where we're going. And then take your foot around the ankle the other direction. We talked about some of the science of the rolling the joints, the joint rotations. Go ahead and take your shin around your knee. You might get a few snap, crackle, pops in there. That's all okay. And when we do these, we don't do them for too long. It's maybe five rotations, take it the other way in each direction, and we turn it around. Good. And then from here, nice wide holding. Now, if you're in the chair, you might just find a way to kind of get some movement into your hip. If you're sitting here on the mat, you're going to find some nice wide circles and whatever is available to you. So some of you might be holding knee foot. That's going to give you your widest circle. You can take it in both directions. Some of you might take it into a little bit of a what we call rock the baby. And really beautiful option here on your back. Lovely, lovely modifications happening here where you can roll the joint out laying down as well. So whatever's supporting that. And then from here, we're going to take this into a deer shape. So for deer, we're going to take right leg behind. So this is where that sidedness helps. Right knee is going to be towards left foot in essentially this kind of shape here. And then I'm going to stay with my back to you for a moment as we turn from here. We're going to turn towards the left and then back around. So you're going to find the range of motion here that really serves you. This is a beautiful shape for unwinding through the fascia of the psoas into diaphragm, into hip flexor, and really make it yours, like, oh, maybe there's a sound in there. That was apparently the sound of my hip flexor. Oh, hello, I love you. Okay. Yeah. And then coming back through to center, and I'm going to show this here from the side, but we're going to take right leg up and over. I think I'm going to muss up the thing here, but up and over, so it's in a bit of a spinal twist. Yeah, good. And then from here, it's going to be a gentle twist toward the right, and start out with your head turning towards the right, your eyes, again, reaching to the right corners of their sockets. And then just the eyes coming to the left. Good. And then let that go. Release your head. All right. And from here, next invitation is to take your right leg long. Right leg long. And in that right leg long shape, just get to know it. Like, oh, hi, I've been sitting on you for a while. How are you doing? Right. You can come in and out. You can use a little bit of havening touch on that upper leg or down the sides of the legs. You migrate your foot. Knee can always be bent, right? Like lots of ways to be creative in these shapes. And it's really not about the outer look of anything that we're creating here. It's about the inside feeling of the shape. Good. And then we unwind from there. Let's find all that on side 2. It's left leg rotations. Foot around ankle, both directions. And then shin around knee. So I've been sharing with you some of my daily practices. Add this to the list, right? Someone was asking me, like, how long in my ideal world? I have an hour and a half for my morning practice, but all of these can actually be done relatively quickly. My vagal toning, like you can give yourself as much space for them, or you can condense it. And then allowing yourself to find some of those hip circles. Or maybe rock the baby. Good. Next invitation is that deer shape. This time left knee to the inside of your right foot. And then finding the range of motion that serves you here. Moving in a way that's really being guided by your sensations. Letting it feel good. Maybe there's a sound. Lovely. Unwinding left leg, it comes up and over the top of the right, seated spinal twist, and twisting to the left, finding your version. It doesn't have to be any kind of cranking into a twist. Nice long spine, finding where your body naturally stops, turning your head to the left, reaching your eyes to the left. Keeping everything the same, just eyes now going to the right. And then unwinding from your twist, eyes, head, leg, and then sending your left leg long and giving it some love. Like, oh, hi, yeah, you too. You too carry me through the world. Letting it feel good. You all okay if I go over a little bit? What's that? Oh, yes, I won't go that long over. Thank you. I'll make sure you all get to set up in here. So, like, 10 minutes okay with y'all? Yeah, no, I'm checking with them, though. If I go over by 10 minutes, am I okay? Okay. Raj, are you cool if I go over 10 minutes? Thanks. We got tea afterwards for a little community connections. Thank you. Okay, good. Just know tea's coming, but let this feel good. So we'll do about, 6 more minutes of movement. We'll integrate, we'll go have tea. Yummy. Just so you know, like all of these practices that I'm sharing with you, they are free on YouTube. Yeah, so like, if we don't get it all in here, it's not the last chance. And I also have Zoom classes that I teach online. So, yay, okay, yay. So we have more ways to connect. Where do I want to go next? I want to go, after you gave your left leg some love, I want to go into a tabletop. Let's take it there. Let's take this into a tabletop. And here's the famous phrase. I would like to invite you to move like your favorite animal just waking up from a nap. So this is your free-form moment just to wiggle it all out. We've been waking up through the shoulders, the arms, the legs, knees, ankles, and now your spine. Letting it go. Letting yourself move maybe between a child's and an upward dog or a cobra. Yeah, sighs again, always welcome. Lovely. Now I think this next guided movement will feel good, so let's do this one together. I'm going to invite you to send your left leg back and give a few heel pulses. Heel pulses, left toes tucked under, right knees down. And then from here, begin to walk your hands around toward the left so that you're in a shape with basically one knee down, 1 foot long. Yeah, good. Nice. And then from here, invitation to take your left arm up and exhale under. And we're going to move with the breath. Inhale, we lift. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale, yay. Last one, we unfurl like a fern to the sun and exhale, hands down. And from here, invitation to walk yourself up, to lift yourself into a preparation for a gate pose. here, knee down, an option to come back to that side body lean. Yeah. It's always nice to use maybe one of those cushions under your knee, especially if the floor gets a little bit hard there. Lovely. And here's a real favorite for me for the fascia. Go ahead and take the extended leg, and you're going to turn it kind of 90-90. So we've got knee down and a little 90-90. It's like you're going to do a extended side angle, but from this different home base with the right knee down. And then the mobility here is really fun because you can lean in and out of your left foot and really reach through your right arm. Notice the subtle changes in that connective tissue, whether your heart is lifted or you're gazing down. Another place to greet psoas hip flexor. And then we're going to cartwheel up, over, and around. Hands back down, making your way back to tabletop. And another 2-3 breaths, integrating moving breathing. How did side one treat you? And we take it into side two. Right leg back, a few heel rocks. And then walking around to the right and allowing yourself to find those fern frond arms. So invitation is to take, your right arm up and exhale, and it comes down with the breath, down and under, but we move with the breath. Inhale to sweep open, lift, maybe your gaze follows fingertips, and exhale as we cross under the body. Even here, there's this lovely kind of nervous system integration, brain integration as we're crossing midline, opening, lifting. Good. And then from here, invitation is to walk yourself up for gate. First moment here is to lean toward that extended right leg. And lots of little nuances. How does it feel as you gaze down? How does it feel as you lift your gaze? What's the depth of that reach? How does your body say yes? Where does your body say no? Equally important. And then maybe the variation here, turning your right toes out, 90-90, and then using that as this home base once again to lean in and out, sensing left hip flexor perhaps. Sounds always welcome. And when you feel even, it's up, around, and over, sending both hands down. And not both hands down yet. Take a moment here just to find that long body lean. We don't want to lose the long body lean. Just that whole right side of your body open, stretches. And then when you're ready, closing it down. Now, I will invite us to move from here into a final integration rest. There's clearly more in this sequence. Come take a longer class with me. They're hour-and-a-half classes on YouTube or on Zoom. But for now, let's really let this be the enoughness that nourishes your entire nervous system. That was plenty, especially for those of you that are doing 2 longer classes today as well. And as you come down, because we just ended with some bilateral, sidedness, you can also take a moment here to even yourself out with a seed pose, a bija, just drawing knees in towards your chest. Give them a hug. You might even tuck your head, nose toward your knees, curl everything in before letting all of that go into final integration. Letting yourself receive the pull of gravity like a dear friend. Knowing that simultaneously the earth is rising up to meet you, to hold you. And that even here there's a buoyancy that supports you from above, so that as you settle into the earth and settle into stillness, you are still being deeply held in an uplifting way. Support for that. It's like a yes, that's what it is. Deeply held in an uplifting way. Knowing that we can turn toward areas of contraction, areas of tenderness and vulnerability with so much love. With so much love. And as we prepare to close out for today, I will once again offer up these words by Nikita Gill. One day when you wake up, you will find that you've become a forest. You've grown roots and found strength in them that no one thought you had. You have become stronger and more beautiful, full of life-giving qualities. You have learned to take all the negativity around you and turn it into oxygen for easy breathing. A host of wild creatures live inside you, and you call them stories. A variety of beautiful birds nest inside your mind, and you call them memories. You have become an incredible self-sustaining thing of epic proportions. And you should be so proud of yourself, of how far you have come from the seeds of who you used to be. And in honoring of the transition for our kirtan folks to come in and set up, I will invite you to bring in a deeper breath, some wiggling of your fingers, your toes. Maybe returning to your intention, to your word, bringing that with you as you slowly transition, maybe from laying on your back to your side. Maybe rocking on your spine or pressing up, gently, slowly, mindfully, bringing all of this with you as you come back to sitting. Once again, finding that shape of your hands, your own mudra for today, your own personal design, your word, your intention. I am. And with a deep bow and gratitude to each and every one of you and taking this class with me, joining me for these 5 classes, if you made it through all of them, or the ones that you could be here for, and with a deep bow of respect and honoring the courage of each of you for attending a class on trauma and post-traumatic growth. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Lovely.